What happens when a CEO goes undercover in his own warehouse and hears a teenage girl mocked for a stutter she can't control? Owen Hartley didn't plan on being this far removed from his own company. 10 years ago, he bought a struggling chain of building supply warehouses 18 across the Midwest. Back then, he was on the floor every day, driving forklifts, loading drywall, taking late-night calls. But over time, success pulled him into boardrooms. Lately, something's felt off. Sales were steady, but turnover was high at certain locations, especially Store 17 in Oakdale, Indiana. Customer reviews were uneven. Some praised the helpful staff, others mentioned rude workers, long wait times, and disorganized inventory. The district manager chalked it up to staffing issues, but Owen didn't buy that excuse. He wanted to see it for himself. So, with a fresh haircut, fake glasses, and a plain blue warehouse polo, Owen became Rick, a new trainee. He'd never met the Oakdale team in person, most only knew him through emails or the occasional video announcement. It was a corporate chain. People didn't expect the owner to show up in boots and gloves. He arrived early Monday morning, just as the first delivery truck rolled in. "Name?" asked the floor manager, a man in his late 30s with a shaved head and a sharp tone. "Rick," Owen said, offering a firm handshake. "Just transferred in, here to learn the ropes." "Great," the guy muttered, barely looking at him. "I'm Brent. You'll stock shelves, unload trucks." "Don't break anything. No welcome. No team introduction. Just a checklist." Owen got to work. The warehouse was big concrete floors, high shelves, forklifts zipping past. He shadowed a kid named Ali on his first run, then spent hours stacking lumber and organizing plumbing supplies. The place felt tense. People moved fast but didn't talk much. Brent barked orders and most avoided eye contact. By noon, Owen was sweating through his shirt. He grabbed a water from the break room and caught sight of a girl maybe 17 or 18 filling a bin of screws. She worked quietly, head down, focused. Then Brent walked by, still sorting. "SS Sadie," he said, dragging out the S in mockery. "Maybe if you'd speak faster, you'd work faster." The girl froze. Her face flushed red. She didn't say a word. Another worker, a woman in her 20s named Lisa, snorted. "She's got a stutter, Brent, you know that." "Yeah," he said, not missing a beat, "and I've got a low tolerance for slow talkers." Sadie turned away, blinking hard. Owen's jaw tightened. He forced himself to stay quiet. He needed to see more, understand the full picture, but something twisted in his gut. The day dragged on. Owen saw Sadie keep her distance, avoid speaking, yet she worked harder than most, lifting heavy boxes, reorganizing a messy aisle no one else touched. She stayed late without being asked. By the time the shift ended, Owen had seen enough to know this wasn't just a one-time thing. He walked out to the parking lot with Ali. "She always that quiet?" Owen asked. "Sadie, yeah," Ali said, glancing back toward the building. "She's smart though, fast. Just doesn't talk much cause, well, you saw." "That happen a lot," Ali hesitated. "Brent's a jerk, man, everyone knows it, but nobody wants to get on his bad side. Sadie just takes it." Owen nodded slowly, heart heavy. This wasn't just a management problem, this was a culture problem. And it was happening under his name. He looked back at the warehouse, lights still glowing through the windows. Tomorrow he'd dig deeper. But he already knew one thing: he wasn't leaving until things changed. By the second morning, Owen was already feeling the fatigue most warehouse workers carried in their bones. His hands ached from lifting pallets, his back twinged every time he bent to restock tile boxes, and a dull stiffness lived in his knees from the concrete floor. He'd barely been there a day, and yet the rhythm of the place, the constant rush, the underlying tension was already familiar. At 7 sharp, Brent called out assignments. There was no greeting, no check-in, just a clipped list of names and tasks shouted over the hum of the fluorescent lights. "Rick, you're in receiving. Ali's training you." Owen nodded and joined Ali by the loading dock, where the first semi of the day was backing in. The kid looked tired, his eyes shadowed, hands already stained with grease from checking the dock plate. "Long night," Owen asked as they waited for the truck door to roll up. Illy shrugged. I work nights at the diner on Fairview. Tips help, but it's a grind. Owen raised a brow. You working 2 jobs? Yeah, my mom's not well. Meds aren't cheap. The truck door clanged open, and the conversation ended as they got to work. Boxes of insulation, buckets of joint compound, bundles of PVC piping item after item came down, and Owen kept pace, asking questions when necessary but mostly watching how Illy moved. The kid was efficient, careful, and respectful of the inventory. No wasted steps, no shortcuts. An hour in, Brent appeared with a clipboard and a scowl. You've got 15 minutes to finish this unload, he snapped. Management's writing me about delays. Illy didn't pause. We're almost done. Don't talk back, just move faster. Brent stalked off without waiting for a reply as they hoisted a box of tile together. Owen caught Illy's glance. He always like that? Owen asked. Illy didn't answer right away. He wiped sweat from his brow with one arm. He's worse when Sadie's around, he said finally. I think he gets a kick out of it. They finished unloading with 2 minutes to spare. Owen scanned the paperwork and noticed a discrepancy: 6 units of lumber missing compared to the order sheet. Hey, this doesn't match, he said, showing Illy. Illy leaned in. That's the 3rd time this month. Stuff goes unlogged sometimes. No one really checks unless there's a customer complaint. Who's supposed to be checking it? Brent does inventory, but he usually just signs off whatever the driver says. Owen let that sit in his mind. Inventory errors like that could cost tens of thousands over time, and if no one was checking, it meant either laziness or something worse. By midday, Owen rotated into aisle restocking. Lisa was working nearby, stacking paint cans. You new guy, she said, not looking up. You figuring out how things work around here yet? Trying to, he said. Seems like a lot of moving pieces. Lisa chuckled without humor. More like duct tape and crossed fingers. He kept his tone light. You been here long? 2 years, started as temp. They never made me full-time but keep extending my contract. Cheaper that way. Why stay? She hesitated. I've got a kid, schedule's stable, beats unpredictable shifts at the nursing home. Owen nodded, then glanced past her. Sadie was organizing bins at the far end of the aisle. Her movements were precise but slow, deliberate. She flinched every time a loud noise echoed in the warehouse. Lisa followed his gaze. She doesn't talk much, she said. Brent's on her all the time. It's disgusting, really, but she won't file a complaint. Why not? She's scared. Probably thinks no one would believe her. Owen felt his jaw tighten. Has anyone tried to step in? I did once, Lisa said. Told Brent to knock it off. Next shift, he gave me all the heavy lifting jobs, no help, made it clear I should mind my business. Owen said nothing. A few seconds passed in silence before Lisa added, You didn't hear that from me. He gave a small nod and returned to work. Just before his shift ended, he spotted Brent arguing with a driver at the front dock. He kept his distance, pretending to organize a shelf, but watched closely. You're 3 hours late, Brent said, voice raised. We're not unloading anything until I talk to dispatch. The driver, a man in his 50s with a tense expression, tried to interject, but Brent cut him off. I don't care if there was traffic. You people are always late. Maybe if you weren't stopping for snacks every hour, the driver stepped back. You don't talk to me like that. I'll talk to you however I want. Owen stepped forward. Brent, we still need the hardware off that truck. Can't we just unload and sort the paperwork later? Brent turned, eyes narrowing. You don't give instructions, you follow them. Go clean the break room. Owen didn't move. I wasn't giving instructions, just trying to keep us on schedule. You want to keep your job, Rick. Then shut up. That was the 2nd time Brent had crossed a professional line in one day. Owen said nothing else, but his mind was racing. This wasn't just abrasive management, it was toxic behavior. At closing, Sadie stayed behind, organizing the return shelf. Owen noticed her rubbing her wrist, flexing her fingers like they were sore. You okay? He asked. She looked startled, then nodded quickly. You don't have to answer if you don't want to, he added. Just looked like you've been working a lot. She hesitated, then said quietly, I have to. I need the hours. Her voice shook slightly, but not from fear, from effort. Each word came out like it cost her something. "You're doing great work," he said gently. "I've seen it." She blinked, surprised, then, for the first time, she looked him in the eye. Thank you." The next morning, Owen arrived an hour early. He walked the floor alone, clipboard in hand, pretending to check stock levels. In reality, he was watching cameras. The office had monitors, grainy but serviceable. He rewound footage from the past 2 weeks. It didn't take long to find what he was looking for. Brent mocking Sadie repeatedly. Brent signing off inventory without checking a single pallet. Brent delegating all the lifting work to Lisa while he scrolled through his phone behind the counter. Owen hit pause. He'd seen enough. At exactly 9:30, he walked to the center of the warehouse, pulled off his glasses and called out, loud and clear, "Can I have everyone's attention, please?" Heads turned. Ellie looked confused. Lisa froze mid-lift. Sadie stared from across the aisle. Brent emerged from the back office, annoyed. "What is this?" Owen stood tall. "My name isn't Rick. It's Owen Hartley. I own this company." The room went silent. Brent's expression twisted, but he said nothing. Owen continued. "I came here because I kept hearing problems out of this location: turnover, complaints, poor morale. So I decided to see it for myself." He looked around the room, making eye contact with each employee. "I've seen hard work. I've seen people going above and beyond while being ignored or mistreated. And I've seen behavior that has no place in this company." He turned to Brent. "You're done. Effective immediately." Brent's face flushed. "You can't just—" "I can, and I will." He looked at Lisa. "You're being made full-time today with benefits." "That should have happened a year ago." He turned to Sadie. "You're one of the most reliable workers I've seen. I want you to know that from today forward, this is a safe place to work. No one will ever speak to you like that again." Sadie's eyes welled, but she didn't look away. "Illy," Owen said, "you're getting a raise, and I want to talk about adjusting your schedule so you don't have to work 2 jobs just to stay afloat." No one spoke. The air was heavy with shock. Owen took a breath. "This place will change. Starting now, I'll be here all week. We're rebuilding trust from the ground up." He walked into the office and picked up the phone. There were more calls to make. HR, legal, logistics. But one thing was already clear. The silence that had ruled this warehouse was broken, and it wasn't coming back. The next morning, Owen sat alone in the store's tiny upstairs office, the blinds drawn halfway over the dust-smeared window. The air was heavy with the smell of old carpet and burnt coffee. He'd been there since before sunrise, reviewing employee files, vendor logs, and 4 months of shift scheduling. The deeper he dug, the more clear it became Brent hadn't just been a poor leader. He'd been actively sabotaging efficiency to maintain control. He had assigned overtime without approval, ignored maintenance requests, and signed off on incomplete deliveries costing the company thousands. Worse, he'd manipulated schedules to isolate certain employees. Owen found 3 instances where Sadie had been placed on shifts where no one else from her original training cohort worked, including Illy. That kind of pattern wasn't coincidental. At exactly 8, the front door buzzed open downstairs. Footsteps echoed across the concrete. Owen closed the file, picked up a clipboard, and headed down. Sadie was already working, sorting metal brackets into bins using a worn pair of gloves. She didn't notice him approach until he was nearly beside her. "Morning," Owen said. She looked up quickly, startled, then gave a small nod and returned to her task with quiet precision. "I wanted to ask if you'd be willing to help train a few new hires next week," he said. "You've got a system. It's efficient." Her hands paused. "IICC can try," she said, eyes fixed on the bin. "But most people don't." He waited. She finally looked up. "They don't listen." Owen crouched slightly beside her, keeping his voice low. "They will now." "That's a promise." She didn't respond, but the way her shoulders lifted slightly told him enough. He stood and moved toward the back, where Lisa was reorganizing a pallet of grout buckets with a new handheld scanner clipped to her belt. "You're here early," Owen said. "They called me about the full-time upgrade last night," she said without looking up. Took me a minute to believe it wasn't a joke. I figured I'd better show I'm worth it. You already proved that. She exhaled through her nose and tightened the strap on her gloves. We going to talk about who's running this place now, or is that still up in the air? I've got someone from another location coming to steady things short term, Owen said. But long term, I think we'll be promoting from inside. Lisa looked up then, narrowing her eyes. Anyone from this crew? We'll see. He moved on without saying more. He didn't want to promise anything until he saw how people stepped up with the toxic pressure gone. By mid-morning, the warehouse felt different. Not loud, not cheerful, just quieter in a way that didn't feel heavy. The team still moved quickly. Ellie was at the loading dock again, but this time with a second person helping a temp from a nearby location Owen had brought in for support. Owen approached as they finished unloading a pallet of cement bags. Ellie wiped his palms on his jeans. Guess what showed up on time today? You think the suppliers heard Brent's gone? Probably. One of the drivers actually smiled. Owen nodded, then handed him a folded paper. Your shift schedule for next week. 4 days instead of 5, same pay. Ellie unfolded it, brows rising. You serious? You've earned it. The kid stared at the paper for a long second, then tucked it into his back pocket without a word. But the way he stood a little straighter after told Owen everything. In the early afternoon, Owen held a quick stand-up meeting near the front counter. Most of the team gathered. A few leaned against shelving units. Sadie stood at the edge near the pegboard wall but within earshot. I'm not going to give a speech, Owen said. I just want to be clear about a few things. He paused, letting the silence settle. No more intimidation. No more favoritism. No more looking the other way. If something's wrong, say it. If you feel unsafe, speak up. I'll back you. One of the newer workers, a tall guy named Marco who'd transferred from Store 9, folded his arms. What if it's the team lead who's acting out? Then the team lead doesn't stay a team lead. Marco nodded once, satisfied. Owen continued, I'm also reviewing all past write-ups. If anyone was disciplined unfairly, we'll fix it. Lisa raised her hand slightly. Are we getting a new inventory system? The one Brent used wasn't tracking shrinkage properly. Yes, we're switching to tablet-based logging starting next week. I'll train anyone who's interested. That got a few murmurs of approval. After the meeting, people returned to work. The mood wasn't celebratory, but it was sturdier, like someone had finally cleared out the mold and opened a window. Owen spent the rest of the afternoon shadowing customer interactions. He stood back as Lisa helped a couple pick out tile for a kitchen remodel. She explained the different types with ease, asked about their design style, and even suggested a bulk discount they didn't know existed. The woman turned to her husband as they walked away. Finally, someone who knows what they're doing. Owen caught Lisa's eye as she came back around the counter. You ever done floor sales before? He asked, not officially. Brent wouldn't let anyone else near the register. Would you want to? She hesitated, then nodded. Yeah. I would. Let's try a full week next month. You'll train with someone from HQ. She didn't smile, but her voice softened. Thanks. Just before closing, Owen sat at the front desk, reviewing the day's logs. The main lights were off. Only the glow of the overhead fluorescents near the office remained. Sadie approached slowly, clutching a small notebook. She stopped just short of the counter. IIW wanted to show you something. Owen closed the ledger and nodded. Go ahead. She opened the notebook. Inside were hand-drawn diagrams of shelving layouts, labeled with part numbers and dimensions. She flipped through 3 pages, each one more detailed than the last. This W would make the F floor easier to navigate, F fewer BB bottlenecks. Owen studied the sketches. They were sharp, practical, and clearly based on first-hand experience. You did all this? She nodded once. I want you to present it, not just to me, to the operations team. Her eyes widened, but she didn't interrupt. I'm serious. You've got insight people at HQ don't. She looked down at the notebook, fingers gripping the edge. I don't know if ICC can. You don't have to decide now, think about it, but this is good work. She gave a small nod and turned to leave. Sadie, Owen called after her. She stopped. You belong here. She didn't respond, but she didn't walk away right away either. That night, Owen sat in the break room after everyone had left. The vending machine hummed softly. Outside, the parking lot was empty, lit only by one flickering security light. He thought about the week. About what he'd seen. It wasn't enough to remove a bad manager. Culture didn't change overnight, but maybe it started with telling the truth, with staying. He picked up his phone and typed out a message to the district HR lead. Schedule me for 2 days a month at store 17. Ongoing. No exceptions. Then he turned off the lights and locked the door behind him. By the start of the next week, the warehouse's rhythm was still raw functional, but far from smooth. The remaining staff were adjusting to the absence of Brent, but the vacuum he left behind wasn't filled just because he was gone. Owen knew that eliminating toxicity was only the first move. Rebuilding trust and structure would take time, consistency, and an unshakable commitment to follow through. At 8 sharp, a temporary operations manager arrived from the Urbana store. Her name was Carleen, mid-40s, sharp-eyed, direct. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. Within 10 minutes of arrival, she had a clipboard in one hand and a steel-toed boot already planted in the shipping bay, assessing the loading workflow. Owen met her in the break room, where she had spread out the existing work schedules and shift logs over a folding table. You've got 2 people doing the work of 5, she said flatly, eyes scanning a highlighter-marked grid. And no dedicated inventory runner. That's why your stock counts are always trailing. I'm aware, Owen said. I've already greenlit 2 new hires, backgrounds cleared yesterday. Good. I'll need one of them shadowing Ellie. He's solid but overloaded. Owen nodded. Done. Carleen looked up. And Sadie? She's training to lead aisle layout and stock cycle reviews. Carleen tapped her pen against the table. She's quiet, but she notices everything. We should get her on the planning calendar, have her walk the floor with me. She's already sketched a revised layout for the fasteners section. We're reviewing it Wednesday. Carleen gave a single nod and returned to her notes. It was the kind of precise, no-nonsense exchange that Owen missed, the kind that kept things moving without politics. Down on the floor, Ellie was reconfiguring the receiving dock with one of the new hires, a lean guy named Jaron who'd worked at the Springfield location for 2 years before moving to Oakdale to be closer to his family. He was quick with his hands and faster, with numbers already spotting a mislabeled freight box before it hit the dolly. As they loaded a pallet of trim boards, Owen stepped up beside them. Jaron, you settling in? Yeah, feels good to be part of something that's getting cleaned up, he said. Word traveled fast about what happened here. Ellie tightened the strap across the pallet. People used to avoid this store on purpose. Owen leaned against the steel railing. That's changing, but it only sticks if you all keep holding the line. We will, Ellie said. But we're still short on hands for the restocking crew. Lisa's been picking up the slack, but it's wearing her down. She mentioned that. Ellie looked over. No, that's why I'm telling you. Owen gave a slight nod and walked toward the storage area. Lisa was kneeling near a stack of tile boxes, scanning labels with one hand while the other braced her on the concrete floor. Her shoulders were tense, and her breathing uneven. He waited until she finished the scan before speaking. You've been on this aisle since 6. I'm fine, she said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. I didn't ask if you were fine. I asked why you're still on the aisle. She stood up slowly, stretching one leg. Inventory's behind. I'm trying to prevent another backlog. You're not covering for anyone anymore. You're the lead now. That means you set the pace, not break yourself trying to make up for a broken system. Lisa hesitated. I don't want anyone thinking I'm coasting just because Brent's gone. Brent's not the benchmark anymore. She looked at him, something in her face loosening. Then she nodded once and stepped back from the stack. All right. I'll rotate out after this row's logged. Good. I'll have Carleen arrange a second restocker by Thursday. Behind them, a customer approached the counter, looking uncertain. Owen recognized the man. He was a contractor who left a scathing review 2 months earlier about a delayed order and disrespect from staff. Back then, Owen had read the complaint and filed it under Needs Follow-up. Today, he intended to do exactly that. Morning, Owen said, stepping up. Need help? The man narrowed his eyes. I'm looking for 3 boxes of galvanized framing nails. Last time I was here, I left empty-handed after waiting 20 minutes. They're in aisle 12 now. We changed the layout. I'll walk you over. As they crossed the floor, the man glanced around. Place feels different. We've made changes, Owen said. Let me know if you don't find what you need. I'm here all week. The contractor paused, frowning slightly. You the manager? Owen smiled faintly. Something like that. Later that afternoon, Carlene called a floor meeting. She stood near the return bin, flanked by 2 updated safety posters and a newly installed whiteboard showing the week's goals. All right, listen up, she said. We're running live restocking tests tomorrow based on Sadie's layout. If it cuts pick time by 5% or more, we're rolling it out store-wide. Sadie stood nearby, arms crossed loosely over her notebook. She didn't say anything, but her eyes flicked across the group, watching their reactions. Lisa raised a hand. You want us adjusting placement mid-shift? No. You'll do it after close. I'll be here with you, Carlene said. Rick Owen will observe. This is a collaborative test, not a top-down order. Ellie tapped the side of the bin. Can we track it on the whiteboard? Show the time savings? Exactly the plan, Carlene said. After the meeting, Owen found Sadie near the bolt section, flipping through her notebook again. This time, the pages were tagged with sticky notes color-coded, each representing a different aisle. He spoke gently. You looked ready to speak during the meeting. I almost did. What stopped you? She closed the notebook slowly. I don't know what they'll think. I'm not used to people listening. You don't need to be used to it. You just need to know it's real. She looked down at the notebook, then back at him. I'll try next time. That evening, Owen met with the district HR manager in a back-office conference call. On the agenda, finalizing Brent's severance file, closing the investigation, and implementing new response protocols for misconduct. No more delays on escalations, Owen said. If someone reports a toxic manager, they don't get buried in bureaucracy. Immediate review. Anonymous if necessary. Understood, the HR manager replied. We're also adding a dedicated workplace conduct liaison per region. Make sure they're trained to recognize subtle abuse, not just what's loud or obvious. After the call, Owen returned to the floor. The lights were low, most workers gone. Only Lisa and Carlene remained, reviewing charts on a clipboard. Owen stepped between the aisles, stopping near the center of the store. The hum of the refrigeration unit echoed faintly in the overhead ducts. The place felt different now, not just quieter, but clearer. The tension that had once choked the air was gone. What remained was work, honest work, and people who were finally being seen. He took a breath, then turned off the overheads. Change had started with exposure, but it would last by design. And he wasn't going anywhere.